Namaskaraha. Sanatana Dharma 101 class continues. Bhakti Dhara flows. We have seen the sequential flow of knowledge which gets elaborated in multiple ways and forms from Veda, which is nothing but Shabda, the Brahman in the form of Shabda, Nada Brahman, Nada Tanumanisham. Saint Tyagaraja, in the beautiful poetry, it's called a language called Telugu, which is known as the Italian of India because it is rhyming. Every language is important, no doubt about it. So he sings Nada Tanumanisham, Anisham, Ishwaram. So Nada is nothing but Shabda is Brahman itself. Devim Vacham Ajanayanta Devaha Tam Vishwarupav Pashavo Vadanti. So people and different species have their own way of expressing their emotions. So that is Nadam. So the Shabda Brahman in the form of Veda flows and then gets diversified into Upanishads. Upanishads are basically Vedanta. Then even Upanishads are difficult to comprehend. So then came the act of storytelling. Storytelling it was. Iti iha asanne, storytelling. Guidance through storytelling, that is very important. You need to grasp people's attention. You need to make people understand. You need to make people follow. It is easy to tell it in the form of stories. So we have seen our grannies and grandpas, particularly great aunts and grandmas used to tell us stories that gets etched into our mind. And that tradition continues. So likewise, the corpus of knowledge continued as storytelling, and that too in an authenticated form. Storytelling it was. So if there is a biographer who is a contemporary, then he would know the actual aspect. So that is storytelling. Iti iha asan. In English they call it as an epic poetry. What are the characteristics of epic poetry? Most importantly, if you look at these epic poems, well, in the Western literature, if somebody studies history or literature or classical languages, they always say, what are the epic poems? The great epic poem is nothing but Gilgamesh. They say, okay, that was the forerunner, Gilgamesh. The epic of Gilgamesh, then comes the Greek poems of Homer. The Odyssey of Homer, then the Iliad of Homer, then comes the Roman epic poems. In the Roman epic poems, you get Virgil's Aeneid, which is nothing but the continuation of Iliad. Along those same lines, you have two great epic poems in India. Those are Ramayana and Mahabharata. These are the two great epic poems, Ramayana and Mahabharata. So those are the two great epic poems. And among those two epic poems, in my mind, Ramayana stands out much more superior. Both are good, but in terms of what to inherit, that is known as epic. The greatest epic of all from Bharatiya perspective is Ramayana and of course Mahabharata. So what does this Ramayana? So this is an epic poem. So the characteristic of an epic poem is it has to have a hero, and then that story should tell the heroic deeds of that hero. And more importantly, if the heroic deeds of the hero are supernatural, in a way that the characters exhibited by that particular hero is something one has to imbibe, one has to absorb, then that is, to me, is the greatest of all the epic poems. So, case in point, take the Epic of Gilgamesh. If you had read that, they equate it to the hero to be a demigod. But then the problem in that Gilgamesh is, the Gilgamesh hero, who is a Gilgamesh, he is not portrayed as a down-to-earth person. He is not portrayed as somebody, all of his characters are in awe, or all of his characters have to be absorbed. It's not the case. The epic poem portrays him to be a king of a monarch or a king of a great valor with arrogance. And then that arrogance is more or less it's same, is being culled by a person created by a god, a goddess. To challenge the arrogance of Gilgamesh, Enkidu, you would have glanced through the Gilgamesh. So, although it is again showing that evil characters have to be quenched, but the hero is portrayed to have some sort of arrogance, which is not the case in Ramayana. It's full of superior, blemishless, spotless character. So the Gilgamesh epic or the Odyssey, the Iliad, Aeneid, then Mahabharata, then of all that, the supermost perfection, I would call it, is Ramayana, the character hero. So Valmiki brings this hero to be a human. That is the beauty of it. It is not being portrayed as a god. Valmiki's intent is, Valmiki's labor is to portray, of course it is a biography, so to portray somebody in this world among us who is exhibiting godly character. So if you have to take it, it's not that some supernatural power, it's not the creation of a god or goddesses like Gilgamesh story. He is a person who himself portrays himself to be a human, but he exceeds in all the super qualities of human. That is the characteristic of Ramayana. So it is a greatest epic poem showing the valor, showing the victory of good over evil, but that the good is done by a human being. Atmanam manusham manye Ramaha Dasarathatmanaha. So he is nothing but a human being. And the other characteristic difference between these Western epics, of course they are all great texts, no doubt about it. 3 different poems from 3 different distinct lands, one characterized by the loftiness of thought, the other one characterized by the structure and the beauty of poem. And there came the third poet who had the combination of the previous 2. Dryden's comment on the Greek and Roman epic poems. So, once upon a time in 3 distinct lands arose 3 different poets or writers. And first and foremost, loftiness of thought. We all know in Western classical, you think if it's loftiness of thought, it's basically Virgil, who wrote in Latin. Then the structure, the beauty of the poetry and structure is of course Homer. Whether you take it as an Iliad, of course let's take Iliad or Odyssey, but Iliad is the Virgil's continuity is from Iliad. So 2 different poets, one came from Greek's side, another came from the Roman side, Italian and Greek. They created greatest epic poems of valor, strength, in a beautiful structure. Then after some time came an English poet, Milton, who got those two in combination in one. So Milton is nothing but Virgil and Homer combined. Both the loftiness of thought and the poetic structure in Milton's poem. It's not William Wordsworth. So Dryden does not give that much credit to Wordsworth because Wordsworth was not a poet. Wordsworth is a poet, but Wordsworth doesn't get that recognition. Of course, if somebody thinks about English poetry, people invariably say it is Wordsworth or Shakespeare. No. But Milton gets the combination of loftiness in terms of thoughts as well as the poetic structure. So, three greatest poets. I don't know why Dryden did not talk about Vyasa or Valmiki, but to me, more than Milton, Valmiki exceeds all these poets because he is giving a text which is a poetry. All in all, it is a poetry. But that poetry is lofty in terms of thought because it is dharma. And that too, it is not a demigod. Valmiki doesn't want, although he gives up on many occasions that Rama is a god. No doubt about it. But in that particular instant, Valmiki's intent was to show that he is a human, but he fails. So, the Valmiki's epic poem portrays a character, spotless character, which is going to give way of life. Whereas all these Western classic does not portray, the purpose is to use this as an aide memoir, as a guidebook for the future generations to live. That's not the intent, in my view. It is just to portray valor, it is just to write a big magnum opus structure that tells about the victory of the valor over the evil thing and to talk about conquerors and to talk about the structure of living, but it is not used or it is not eulogized, which Monier Williams also points out. So compared to these, even compared to Mahabharata, it is the only epic poem of Valmiki which has the loftiness of thought. The thought is you have to live righteously, dharma. And then that values which were exhibited by a human, of course he is a god in the human form, and that gets eulogized as a great text, as a gospel indeed. That is the beauty of Ramayana, which none of these, whether it is a Gilgamesh or Homeric poems like Iliad and Odyssey or Virgil's, does not do. And nobody takes Iliad and Odyssey to a church on a Sunday and reads it during Mass. That has its place, no doubt. But to eulogize even today, many thousands of years later, as a text of gospel, on equivalence to Veda, that is the characteristics of this Bharati epic poem. Because it has the loftiness of thought, it is having a structure of mellifluous flow of words. Valmiki was very shrewd in that. He didn't use different complicated poetic structure. 95% is simple 32-letter poem, couplet, in a easy mellifluous flow called Anushtup. And it tells it in a dramatic form as a story. The lofty thought is to practice dharma even at the cost of your own family, even at the cost of your own better half. Practice dharma, that's a lofty thing. But Valmiki is a great storyteller because of that, the thought plus the structure and the way it has been told as a story is what makes it to be a gospel read daily even today. Even Mahabharata doesn't reach to that status. Only Gita, 700 poems of that 125,000 poems or slokas, out of that only 700 poems get memorized and recited. But that's not the case with Ramayana chapter. We said that there are about 640 chapters in 7 cantos. They are read on a daily basis as a gospel. That is the characteristic of Ramayana. Veda Upabrahmanarthaya. Because it is the essence of Veda told in a storied form of a valeric king who portrays himself to be a human being. So people are able to connect. It's not about the love and it's not about the valor alone like certain other epics do. Those are there. Ram and Sita are made for each other. No doubt about it. But above all, beyond all these basic, common, mundane things, it tells to have certain righteousness in life, which was the purpose of Veda. But Veda being what is called as a covert structure in some sense. In Tamil it is called Marai. That means it's covert. Valmiki makes it a point to tell a story in a poetic form, easy to grasp and easy to practice, and because of the loftiness of thought and the hero's character, it is eulogized and even till this day memorized and recited in full. It may not be possible to memorize all those 24,000 couplets, but at least it is recited word by word on a daily basis. People are using it as a protocol to recite at least one chapter a day. So that is the uniqueness of this greatest epic poem of all the epic poems. So what does it do? Veda Upabrahmanarthaya. It is nothing but the explanation of Veda. But then we have said, this is very important, why we have to study Ramayana. Ramasyayanam iti Ramayan. And that text which takes us to Ram. Ramaha ayate anena iti Ramayan. The text that takes us to Rama. In other words, who is Rama? Rama is nothing but a person of superior character, who is a towering figure, who stood on the rock of Dharma and Satya. When people surrounding him were not able to do, this towering figure stood on the rock of Dharma and Satya, in the words of one of the greatest Sanskrit scholars of 20th century, Professor Raghavan, who was the professor of Sanskrit of Madras University, the famed, hallowed Madras University, one of the two earliest universities of India. So he stood on the rock of Dharma and Satya. What is the distinction between Dharma and Satya? To follow and practice truth and righteousness is Dharma. Okay. So we have established everything is there. But then how can you take Ramayana as a text, as an authoritative text? To Sanatanis, it is Veda alone can be considered in one way, but it is not. But Veda itself tells and proclaims. Veda itself proclaims both in the main portion of Veda as well as in Upanishad portion. It tells down the road there will be text called Itihasa, there will be text called Purana. Those also reveal me. Sarvastaha rucho yajugum shisamani. Sarvastaha, sarvaha asti. It will be there. I am there. I will be revealed. Brahman will be revealed. In what? In Rigved, Yajurved, Samaved. We know that. Atharvangirasaschaye. This is there in the main Veda, Yajurveda itself. Then you see Sarvastaha Itihasa Puranancha. So there it gives one clue that don't only think Vedas are there to reveal myself. Don't only think that the abode for me is only Veda. The abode for me is only Rig, Yajur, Sama. You also will have something called Atarvangi Rasascha. Sarvasta Itihasa Puranancha. So Veda itself proclaims the authority of Itihasa and Purana. Among Itihasa and Purana, the biography written by contemporaneous authors takes the superior position. So, Itihasa. Among the Itihasa, Ramayana takes the superior portion because it tells what you should do, which we have established. So, today's class, we are establishing that Veda itself accepts. Veda itself accepts in its main portion, there is an indication about the presence of Itihasa and Purana. And then it goes more deep and says with strong conviction in the Upanishad. One may even question, okay, these are not said in the main bhaga or main text of Veda. No, today's class we have revealed. Probably the first time the class would know that there is a revelation in Veda itself telling that there are texts which will be written by enlightened souls or seers or rishis. So, mantra drashtaraha iti rishi. Whereas when it comes to Valmiki, Valmiki himself says he is a muni. Mananashilaha iti muni. Who is a muni? Who is able to contemplate mananashilaha. Who is able to contemplate better things, superior things, and then preach it to the world. Those people who are able to contemplate higher things and preach it to the masses are known as munis. So Valmiki himself qualifies himself to be a muni. So these will be revealed by munis. Of all the text, Valmiki's text is the Adhikavya, for which there is a pramana, because this corpus of literature, this genre is Itihasa, which is revealed in Veda. May not be the exact name as Ramayana. Ramayana is not the name what Valmiki gives. Valmiki gives it as a Ravana Vada. Valmiki gives it as a Sitayaha Charitam Mahat, the story of Lady Sita. Then he says the killing of Paulasya Rishis, Vamsa, person Ravana. Okay. Then the Upanishad, most importantly, the Brihadaranyaka Upanishad, which is one of the two largest Upanishad. Brihadaranyaka Upanishad is the last portion of which Veda? It is the last portion of Shukla Yajurveda, Brihadaranyakam. It gives authority to Itihasa and Purana, stating that these are also like the breath of the Brahman. We have so far seen Vedas are breath of Brahman. No, in addition to Vedas, Itihasas and Puranas and the elaborate texts of these Itihasas and Purana. It does not alone stop with Itihasa and Purana. It says the elaborate texts of these Itihasas and Puranas are also revered and revealed texts. And it gives an example. So like you take a wet firewood. If you take a wet firewood and then lit the fire, it is difficult to lit. But once it lights, it gives smoke in addition to fire. Because it is not fully dry, it is wet. So it gives smoke in addition to the jyoti, in addition to the fire. Likewise, the breath of Brahman is not only the Veda. The breath of Brahman is additional smoke that comes out of a wet firewood in addition to the main primary jyoti. Those are nothing but Itihasa, Purana, Upanishad and good sayings. Pritak dhuma vinishcharanti eva varesya mahato bhutasya. Are mane firewood. Nishwasitam etad yadrugvejo yajurveda samavedo atarvangirasaha Watch this. Itihasah Puranam Vidya Upanishadaha. As you kindle fire out of a wet wood, you get dhuma. Dhuma means smoke. In addition to the Agni, in addition to fire, the swasa, the breath of Brahman is not only the three primary Vedas, it also includes Atharvangira, Prithak Dhuma, Vinishcharanti evam va aresya mahato bhutasya nishvasitam etadya drugvedo yadurvedas Samaveto Tarvangirasa Itihasa Puranam Vidya Upanishad Sloka Sutrani Anuvyakyanani Vyakyanani Shtam. Then it finishes. Don't only stop with the Itihasa and Purana. If those Itihasas and Puranas are explained well in explanatory texts, which are known as Vyakyan or elaboratory texts, you also have to consider them as an authoritative text. So, Ramayana is an authoritative text, and amongst all the biographies written by an immediate spectator. The immediate spectator for Rama is Valmiki, because Valmiki and Rama lived along the same time frame. It is Ramayana. So what does Ramayana do? It is a great epic poem exhibiting spotless, blemishless characteristic of a great hero who was a human being, but he was a god. But he wanted to be portrayed as a human being. And his story written by a contemporary author who was an enlightened soul and who gave a text so that one can use the text as a guidebook for life in such a way that it had not only had the loftiness of thought, it also had a poetic structure which is easy to imbibe. Because of the quality and the content, it got eulogized, and till today it is eulogized as a gospel, not an epic alone. That's the distinction between Iliad and Odyssey and Aeneid and Gilgamesh. They are not eulogized as a gospel. Western religions have different gospel, whether it is a Torah, Old Testament, or a New Testament, or a Quran. They are not considered as epic, but they are the greatest text for salvation of those believers as gospels. Whereas Ramayana is an epic in all standards. It's a biography, authoritative biography. On top of it, it is a gospel. That's a characteristic of this greatest epic poem. Similarly, Mahabharata is an epic poem, but it is not eulogized on a daily basis, whereas a section of Mahabharata is eulogized. 700 slokas, because those 700 slokas are songs celestials. Those are the words spoken by the Lord himself, but not the entire Mahabharata. So now we know the superiority of Ramayana. So in the 11th century, there was a great Sanskrit poet and a philosopher called Damodar Mishra. 11th century, roughly 1000 years back, I guess, yes. He wrote a poem or a drama to portray the superiority of Ramayana, and that too the superiority of a great character in Ramayana called Hanuman or Maruti. That's not the context here. So in that text, he gives what's the purpose. Now we have established that this is a Veda. And Veda in the story form, because the edicts in Vedas are to be imbibed, have to be etched into our minds. So it became a good story. Valmiki was a good storyteller, and this became the resting place for all good people. Ramayana, 1000 years back, this poet writes, Kalyananam nidhanam kali malamathanam pavanam pavananam. Beautiful Sanskrit poetry. First listen, then I'll explain. Kalyananam nidhanam kalimatamathanam pavanam pavananam pateyam yan mumuksho sapadi paripada praptaye prastitasya visramasthanamakam kavivara vachasam jivanam sajjananam bhijam dharmadrumasya prabhavatu bhavatam bhutaye ramanama. This Ramayana or Ramanama, what is it? It is the abode of all auspiciousness. In other words, hope. Kalyanam means auspiciousness or hope. Nidhanam means abode. So for people like Rachel, just take these translatory words I am giving. The abode of all auspiciousness. Kalyananam nidhanam kalimala mathanam. It quells all the blemish. Kalimala, malamane blemish. The blemish of all the Kali, the Yuga. Kali here is Yuga. The evilness. It churns and destroys. Mathanam. Mathanam actual means churning. But it destroys all the evil things. The example is it destroyed Kumbhakarna, it destroyed Ravana, it destroyed Suparnaka, it destroyed Tataka. All these are evil. Evil thoughts. Kalimala matanam pavanam. Panam means pure, pristine. This is the pristine of all pristine because Ram. He never wavered from Dharma. He was a towering figure standing on the rock of Dharma and Satya. Who said that? Professor, you have to take notes. It's not just simply listening. It's a course. So take notes. So who is the professor who said that? Professor V. Raghavan. Pateyam yan mumuksh. Pateyam means the thing that you take in travel. Supportive paraphernalia. Whether it is a medicine or a food, whatever it is. Pateyam. Pateyam means that comes when you travel. Handbag, keep it like that. Pateyam yan mumuksho. Mumukshu means moksham ichchati. Who desires bliss. Who are mumukshu? Those people who desire bliss. They are called mumukshu. Moksham ichchati. Those people who aspire for the superior bliss. It's known as mumukshu. Pateyam yan mumuksho sapadi paripada praptaye prastitasya. Prastitasya means way. So it is nothing but a way to reach the superior bliss. Visram means restful. Visram. So this is the restful place for all the elevated souls. Visramasthanam ekam. This is the one and only rest place for people who are aspiring superior bliss. Visramasthanam ekam. This is the ekam means one and only. Visramasthanam ekam kavivara vachasam. Kavi here it means poet. But here you should take it as somebody who is aspiring. Kavivara vachasam jivanam sajjanam. This is the life, or this is the home, or this is the abode for righteous people. Kavivara vachasam jivanam sajjananam bhijam dharmas druma. Druma mane tree. This is the seed for dharma. Bijam dharma drumasya prabhavatu bhavatam bhutaye. Let this be the path for salvation. Who said that? Damodar Mishra of the 11th century poet. So this is Ramayana. So Ramayana is all about telling the greatest guna. Telling the greatest guna. What is a guna? The greatest guna here is about Ram. Ram is nothing but the embodiment of Dharma. So he is the embodiment of Dharma. What is the greatest of all the qualities? Sheel. This you should understand. The greatest quality of Ram, the embodiment of Dharma, is Sheel. Sheel in English. Whereas it is Sheela Guna. Sheela means down to earthness. Down to earth, mixing and understanding everybody. Ram does not discriminate whether it is a monarch brother or a boatman Guha. That is known as Sheel. Like the flow of water. Water flows everywhere. Of course, there should be some slope. That's all it is needed. So water doesn't discriminate. He's a good man, he's a bad man. Rain doesn't discriminate. Like that is known as Sheel Guna. Sheel. And qualified Sheel is known as Sausilyam. That is the greatest guna of Brahman. Sausilyam is different from Saulabhyam. Saulabhyam means simplicity. Likewise, not wearing ornament, not wearing flashy blinds, not wearing blinds and shades. So that is Saulabhyam. Saulabhyam is simplicity. Whereas Saushilyam is mixing with people without any discrimination. Ram is known to have Saushilyam. Of course, when you have Saushilyam, all other qualities will fall in line. People say he is simplistic. Simplicity. He is a man of simplicity. Okay, that's the greatest attribute. But better than simplicity, you are mixing and mingling with people with no discrimination. That is what Shastra considered to be the epitome of all the attributes is Saushilyam. So, what are the qualities? He is a hero, like Gilgamesh. But what did I say? How does Ram distinguish himself from Gilgamesh? Gilgamesh showed arrogance of being a monarch. Whereas Ram doesn't show that. He mixes with people, no arrogance. Vashi, Vadhanyaha, Gunavan, Ruju, Shuchi, these are the important. Vashi, he attracts everybody and he gets attracted to everybody. So when people say, when Rama was supposed to be crowned, Dasaratha was contemplating, he called a council of ministers and people and asked, even though he was a monarch, he asked, hey people, tomorrow I am planning to crown my eldest sons. I am 60,000 years old. What do you say? People were telling, oh, we were expecting this day. Hey Dasarath, we were expecting, when will you yourself tell that you are going to relinquish the kingdom? So people say, we were longing, Valmiki writes, people came into the streets and they themselves, they were visualizing Ram coming on an elephant, ornamented elephant as a Yuvaraja, as a crown prince on a big 4-lane, 8-lane roads on the Ayodhya, streets of Ayodhya. Icha mohi mahabahum raghuviram mahabalam gajena mahatayantam ramam chatra vrutananam. Chatra, we already studied. The characteristic of being a king is his umbrella and his fan. So, Icha mohi, hey Dasarath, we were longing, Icha maha, we were longing, Mahabhagum Raghuviram. We want only Rama to be the crown prince, not the crown prince. We want him to be the king. But you are living. Icha mohi Mahabhagum Raghuviram Mahabalam. Valor. What did I say? It is an epic poem. So the characteristic of an epic poem is it is to be centered around valor. Valmiki points that. Valmiki and the other Western classical writers are yonder. In terms of time, in terms of space, in terms of age, in terms of culture, different. But the concept, the crux of that epic poem, because Ramayana is an epic poem, so it has to be structured, centered around valor and strength. So Valmiki says this is not the Dasaratha's view, it is the view of the people. It's a democracy in a monarchy. Beautiful it is. Now democracies are turning into monarchical. That's a different story. But there, when Rama ruled, Dasaratha ruled, it was a hereditary monarchy. But he ruled like a democratic administrator. So that is Rama Rajya. Icha mohi mahabahum raghuviram malabalam gajena mahatayantam ramam chhatravruthananam. That's it. 32 letters. You memorize, you recite. No text, nothing. That is Ramayana. But nobody reads Iliad or Odyssey or anything like that. Gilgamesh. I have never even studied the full Gilgamesh. Of course, Odyssey and Iliad, at least I am teaching these classics, so I have to go and look in the library. So I know how big that structure is. At least I have touched Odyssey of Iliad and Homer and Virgil's poetry. Whereas not Gilgamesh. Whereas Ramayana is in your mind. Vashi Vadanya Gunavan. What is guna? That's what if you say guna without any description, that means it is Saushilyam. Just if something in Sanskrit literature, they say guna. Guna means character. But in Sanskrit literature, in Sanatana Dharma, guna means it is Saushilyam. Vadanyaha, one who gives himself. Vashi is attractive. Gandharva Radha Pratimam. He was such a beautiful Gandharva. Gandharva is the personification of, you can say for lack of better term, Cupid. So mesmerizing beauty. Who was Ram? Ramayati iti Ram. Rama means one who melts you. Ramayati, who makes you happy. The name Ram itself makes you happy. Ramayati iti Rama. Lakshmanaha Lakshmi Sampannaha. Shatrugnaha Nitya Shatrugna. Gna means to kill. To kill all the foes is Shatrugna. Bharataha Bharatati iti Bharataha. Who is able to take responsibility. See, the name itself tells the story. Ramayati iti Ramaha. Lakshmi Sampannaha iti Lakshmana. What is the Lakshmi? What is the wealth Lakshmana had? Of course, he even left his wife, Urmila. Urmila did not come with Lakshmana to the forest, but then he must be characterized as a pauper. But everybody says he's a Lakshmiwan, he's a wealthy person. He had the wealth of being a servant to Ram. That is Lakshmi Sampanna. Then Bharatati iti Bharataha. Who can take the response? When Ram was away 14 years, Bharata took care of the kingdom on behalf of Ram. Hence the name Bharataha. Shatrugnaha, Nitya Shatrugnaha. He didn't worry about anything. Bharata said, come to me to my uncle's place. He went. He didn't aspire for anything. Nobody knew anything about Shatrugna. At least about Bharata we know in epic poem of this big. How much is known about Shatrugna? He didn't care about anything. So, Vashi, Ramaha, Vadanyaha, one who gives everything. He gave himself to people. Whoever went into refuge, he said, I'll give. When Vibhishana, the brother of Ravana, comes, Sakrideva prapannaya tavasmiti cha yachate abhayam sarvabhutebhyo dadami etat vratam. I have made a vow that I will give anything for people who take refuge in me. Rama says, dadami etat vratam mama. That is vadanyaha. That means who gives. Gunavan, Sausilyavan. Pasivadanyo Gunavan. Ruju. Ruju means being truthful inside and outside, both. It's not that you act outside as a facade, truthful, but internally you don't do. Rama says to his stepmother Kaikeyi, Ma, I give you a word. Don't think that tomorrow I will change. Ramaha dvi na abhibhashate. Rama's tongue will not twist and turn. What I say now is forever for 11,000. Ramaha dvi. Dvi means two. I don't flip my tongue. I am not like a snake's tongue. You have seen snake tongue, it is split. Snake's tongue will be split. So dvirna abhibhashate. I will not speak it in two sense. One. Only one word. Vakamata, vakabhana, vakadara. Only one word, one wife, and one kodanda. Nothing else. Vashi vadanyaha gunavan ruju suchi. Pristine, clean in thought, clean in act. Mrudu, very soft spoken. No harsh word. Dayalu. Vadanya means one who goes and gives himself physically. Dayalu means gives materials. So where did he give physically? When there was a feud between Sugriva and Vali, he knows Sugriva is on the side of Dharma, so he goes to protect him. Vadanya rujuhu suchuhu Mruduhu, dayaluhu, madura, stiraha. Always steadfastness. Samadukka sukhaha. He doesn't discriminate between a rich and a pauper. To him everybody is same. Kriti, one who always does good acts. Kritagnaha, one who always understands and respects the good deed and friendship given to him. Kritagnaha. One who always remembers act of kindness. Kriti means one who always does act of kindness, and Kritagnaha means one who remembers the act of kindness done to him and to others. Swabhavataha, innately, Rama had all these characters. But Gilgamesh did not. Gilgamesh was an arrogant. What this sloka says, he is mridu, always down to earth humility. This is why, even though Rama and Valmiki wants us to believe that Rama is like us, these characters, Vasi Vadanya Gunavan Ruju Suchi Mrudur Dayalu Maduraha Stira Samaha Kriti Kritagnaha. 12 good characters make this human being par excellence, and he is a veritable God indeed. Raghavan finishes his phrase about Rama. Who was Rama? He was a towering figure. Okay, a towering figure can be a human being. Yeah, stood on the rock of Dharma and Satya. But it made him to be a veritable God because of these 12 characters. And these 12 characters are the great qualities of a supreme. Samasta Kalyana Gunamruto Dadihi. Samasta Kalyan. He is the abode of all the superior characteristics, superlative characteristics. What are those? Vasi Vadanya Gunavan Rujuhu Suchi Mrudu Dayalu Maduraha Stiraha Sama Kritagnaha Kriti. 12 great characters. He was a crucible of these 12 characters. Samasta Kalyana Gunamrita. This is like a nectar, Amrita Ambu. This is like a nectar of ocean of great qualities. That is Rama. Ramayati iti Ramaha. Mattamadangagaminam. He came when he walked along the streets. People wanted to go near him because his effulgence that radiated because of these superlative characteristics. It's not that simply abstract. People have seen. That's the belief. That's the faith. People have seen this abstract walking along the streets, in the streets of Ayodhya, along the banks of Sarayu, along the banks of Ganges, and along Dandakaranya, and along Nashik, along Godavari, along Panchavati. People have seen these characters having life and shape as a human. So when you get absorbed in these characters, which was walking, then people come tradition after tradition. You may not be able to touch that abstract now, but those days people saw, right, with meat and flesh. Valmikistu Vijayi Pratamat Kavinam. That this 12 superlative characters taking a shape and meat and flesh was seen by first and foremost people and a great Kavi called Valmiki. Valmikistu Vijayi Pratamat Kavinam. Tasya anusa saralaha sachakalidasa. Then afterwards, after the time of Rama, nobody can see those characters as a meat and flesh, but people follow what Valmiki has written. Anusasaran. People followed, and one of the greatest follower of Valmiki in portraying these 12 superlative characters of Ram was Kalidasa. He was like Milton. He was like Wordsworth. Well, the other way. We should say Wordsworth and Milton were close to Kalidas. Either way, because of the dates. Anye bhavantu kavayo. There can be many people. The gift horse keeps on giving. Yesham krita kritishu na yeva maya. Once you know this Ram character to Valmiki, that get embellished in true sense by Kalidasa and other poets, enough for you. Veda Upabram. Valmiki in his own word says, this is Veda. I am seeing Veda walking. Tyagaraja in the Telugu poetic language says, Alagalallalata gagani aran muni etu pongano. Alaga allalata gagani. Say, see this superior character walking. When they were walking, his braids were all floating in the air. Alaga allalata gagani, in air. Aranmani, if you see this Dharma walking with such a beautiful shape and face, you get mesmerized. Nothing else. You will only follow the path of that superior handsome man. Alagalallalata gagani aran muni etu ponga. Even the great munis like Vishwamitra and Vasishta lost their sense. Aran muni etu ponga. No. I don't know how they were able to hold their breath. Because you have seen this character, spotless, blemishless character coming near you. Gandharva Raja Pratimam Vikyata Paurusham. Epic. Valmiki's Vikyata Paurusham, a man of great valor. Rama Ravanayor Yuddham, Rama Ravanayor Yuddham Iva. Non-stop. Whereas in Mahabharata, the war was only when the sun rise and the war ended when the sun set. But not in Ramayana days, non-stop, even in the night, 10 days, non-stop yuddha. Valor, epic poetry, because that was an epic poetry. So valor is the crux. Rama Ravanayor yuddham, Ravana Ramayor yuddham iva. And that is the, Veda then says, that is the Brahman. Yap pranato nimishato mahitvaikaha. Mahima, that kind of valor. Idraja jagato bhabuva. Yaisha asya dvipadas chatushpadaha. Kasyai devaya avisha videma. You have to only eulogize. That is the reason nobody is eulogizing Homer's poetry. Veda says, both Rigveda and Yajurveda says, you have to pay your obeisance to this, whose mahima is beyond comparison. Who is like that? His mahima is like Himalayas. Veda says, Yasye me himavanto mahitva. And His gifting, his benevolence is like ocean, samudra. Samudram rasaya sahahu. So that is the one. I only pay my obeisance to that. Kasyai devaya avisha videma hiranyagarbhas samavartatagre bhutasya jataf patireka asit. Rigved. Hiranyagarbha, that golden egg. He literally, Max Muller translates it as golden egg. But no, that's the crucible. He is the material cause of everything. Hiranyagarbhasamavartatagre bhutasya jatah patireka asi sadhadharav prithivim. He is the gifter of the Prithvi. He is the beholder of this Prithvi. He is the beholder of every human. Dhyamu temam kasmai devaya avisha vidhema. He is the one who has to be worshipped. He is none other than Rama. Ramayati iti Rama. Storytelling. You see, all these complicated things of Veda, just as a story. And this is the only character who never even wavered by thought and deed, in mind and action. Everybody else, even Krishna. Krishna's deeds were mischievous when he was youth. Krishna's deeds were cunning when he was grown up in 80-year-old, because he had to win at any cost the Mahabharata Yuddha. Rama did not even change his mind. So that is what is Dharma? The great scholar and the Governor General of India, one of the greatest minds of India, fought for Indian independence, Chakravarti Rajagopalachari, fondly known as Rajaji. He says this: what is Dharma? Dharma is the innate nature of human, which is nothing but Ram. Then I said, can you show how that Dharma will work? It's like cow giving milk. That's the innate character of a cow. It has to give milk. And if you take a horse, the innate nature of a horse is to run. And then what is the nature of a scorpion? Bite. Snake, bite. And what is the innate nature of a peacock? To dance. That is Dharma. The innate quality of an element or an object. And Rajaji gives this example. Likewise, the innate nature of Rama is itself Dharma. What is Dharma? Dharma is nothing but Panbu. He tells in Tamil in an All India radio broadcast. He says, people, what is Dharma? Loke dharmishtam praja upasarpanti dharmena papam apanudati tasmat dharmam paramam vadati. Again, oh God, Veda, what is this? I don't understand. Forget it. Are you seeing a cow at your house? Yes. A pregnant cow, its first function is to feed its calf. Finish. That is Dharma. That is the Dharma for the cow. And on a rainy day, beautiful, look at this. Who else can explain? On a beautiful rainy day, in a cloud, dark cloud, the peacock dances. Nobody tells that, nobody takes a stick and prods peacock to dance. It dances. That's Dharma. And you leave a horse will be itching to run. So the Dharma, the innate nature or a quality of a horse is only the problem with human being is we don't know what is the innate nature. That's the problem. Even though we have a sixth sense, it's difficult. We don't know what is our innate nature. Only some people whom we call enlightened souls can understand that. That's what we say. Kalyananam nidhanam. Who said that? Damodar Misra. Kalimala matanam. Pavanam pavananam. Pateyam yan mumuksho. Saphadi parapada praptaye prastitasya prastanam means marga, path, prastanatrayam marga. Visramasthana ekam kavivara vachasam jivanam sajjana. Beautiful. This is the refuge of all the good people, is nothing but this embodiment of Dharma. Once upon a time walked on the land. Visramasthana ekam kavivara vachasam. Jivanam Sajjananam. Then comes the point. He is Rama because he is the seed of that plant called Dharma. Bijam Dharma Drumasya Prabhavatu Bhavatam Bhutaye Ramanama. Mangalam Gosalendraya Mahaniya Gunabdaye Chakravarti Tanujaya Sarvabhaumaya Mangalam. Mangalani Santu, storytelling as a way of providing guidance as depicted in Veda is Ramayana. So, we have gone into depth the purpose of Ramayana, why it is a text that has to be imbibed, recited, memorized, whatever.